and thank you for being a part of the Leo Kingdom.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's David Palmer, Leo King, and we're here live for Deep Astrology, your weekly astrology forecast of the week of May 28th through June the 3rd, 2019. If you've never watched the show before, this is where live, we do it at the highvibe.tv studios, where we go live talking about your weekly astrology, where I channel a horoscope straight to you, and then we go deep into the charts where we display it to you live. Brought to you by Astrology, which is on iOS, Android, and of course you can get it on your MacBook or your iMac, but if you're on PC, head over to Solar Fire, all the same company, and I want to say thanks to them for always bringing awesome charts for us for this program. Well, if you are new to astrology or you're not new to astrology, I'm sure you've been feeling the big turn that has happened from last week of the Mars-Uranus energy that we had with Chiron in the middle of there, almost kind of like thinking it was going to go one direction and another, and it looks different than you thought it would, and oh my gosh, okay, here we are now on this week, ready for a new moon. It's going to happen on the 3rd, so at the end of this week in Gemini, really bringing forth this really new energy, but we are definitely at this waning part of the moon this week, and we got a lot of things going on. Before we get to this new moon in Gemini, which is going to be very exciting, especially with Mercury in its home sign right now, there's definitely a lot of stimulation going and a lot of new energy that's coming out really fast. But there's going to be some really beautiful aspects this week and then some extreme tense ones too. So it's a mixed bag, but what better way to be a Gemini, right? Or have Gemini energy? Mixed bags. You want both sides, you know what I mean? And I think I want to start with the beautiful energy first. Yeah, most people think I always start with the hard stuff first, you know? But you know what? This beautiful energy is right away happening as we're talking right now here on Tuesday and into Wednesday. Holy cow, the North Node in Juno. Yeah, we're bringing Juno into this. I know I don't bring in Juno much, but only when I see Juno doing some really powerful things. And this Juno energy definitely is about the kind of partnerships we want in our life, how we really start to find, I would say, this more divine connection to love, especially that relationships is one of the biggest parts of 2019, since of course we're ending the whole Saturn-Pluto cycle that started in 82 in Libra and 83 in 2019, right? Because Saturn and Pluto are here in Capricorn and they're meeting up in January 2020. So there is this kind of really intense relationship, not kind of, the most major intense relationship aspects that have been happening, that have been coming to this huge close over 30 years. But to see this North Node Juno trine Neptune with Venus and Taurus in its home sign making an awesome sextile to that North Node in Juno, and at the same time, Venus is going to be making awesome contacts with Saturn and Pluto. So this is really good when it comes to formulating partnerships, relationships, projects that feel divine, that feel in alignment from our emotional needs, but more importantly, with that Saturn-Pluto South Node in Capricorn, you know, it's like we're almost getting over this harder story when it comes to relationships, these harder situations. This is, I think, a liberating aspect, because I think, one, with Venus and Taurus, it wants to find just the feel-good energy. And with Juno in alignment and with this North Node Neptune, this is beautiful because this is actually shedding off things. Because you have to remember that also Venus is going to sextile Neptune this week. This brings out magic. This is Venus in its home sign of dignity. This is Neptune in its home sign of dignity of Pisces, right? Like this is really faded, beautiful alignments going on with relationships and projects right now. Shifting the tides, letting go of a lot of this old energy, letting the past be the past, letting a lot of things finally release. But the tense aspect is in our mind. Mercury this week in Gemini, of course, its home sign, going to be opposing Jupiter and squaring Neptune, creating a big T-square to Neptune. So as Neptune's trying to offer this really deep compassion, this letting go, this magical energy, connected with the North Node, connected with our destiny now to a much more comfortable, much more joyous, much more, beneficial lifestyle, there is this tension of our mind, because Mercury square Neptune can get confused. It could come into deep doubt, especially with Jupiter in its home sign. So look at this. This is the first time in our lives Just going to tell you that one right now. In all of our lives. Anybody on this planet right now, unless it's some person that lives in India. I've heard some of those people live to like 200-something years old. So if one of you are watching out there in India and you're over 165 years old, that's Neptune cycle, right, around the sun. Last time Neptune was in Pisces, of course, was 1848 through 61. So we've never seen in our lives Mercury square Neptune, Mercury in Gemini, its home sign, and then opposed Jupiter in Sag, its home sign, square Neptune. This is major. So that's why I'm saying, what a mixed bag. This whole beautiful energy of projects, relationships, and all this fate and destiny, and almost kind of feeling like whatever feels like good and more homey and more safe and feels easier in our life, that's where we need to go. But it's our battle and clash of our mind and our belief systems that are definitely, I would say, deeply connected to this more egoic aspect that we have to let go of. I say egoic because we have Mars in the North Node, which are in Cancer. And Mars has just gone through this big Chiron square. So it's almost like we really came to a point, especially this weekend, which I'll be honest with you, if you think about the energy this weekend, there was this point of kind of no return when it comes to where your ego's identity of how you thought life was going to be, and Uranus threw you a big curveball. And no, Mike Trout did not hit it out of the park right away, but he did hit it out of the park once you went through it. So it's almost like we've had these big home runs of letting go and shedding our vulnerabilities, or I would say shedding the exterior parts that have been blocking the vulnerabilities of our true emotional humanic self, or you want to call it from just the human form of who we are. We've been stripped down to this place of being truly our human element. And then on the other half of the scale, for those that kind of didn't pay attention to it or don't want to go through the ego blocks or want to go through them and want to keep jumping over those, like that's where that Saturn-Pluto plays out of, being in the rat race of just trying to, dehumanize and just accomplish whatever and just kind of set your tone on this is how it's going to be. This is asking for us to be flexible. Instead of fight to try and figure out how to sustain some sort of, this has to be this way in my life and this is what I've decided on. This is a flexible time. And with this alignment of all this Juno and Neptune and Venus and the North and South nodes connecting with Venus, and even with Venus, which trines Saturn in the South node, trines over to Pluto in Capricorn, right? There's this change of what we identify with, of what feels good, what kind of partnerships, the value systems, and that's a major reset. And the flexibility aspect of Mercury, Neptune, and Jupiter, all three deal with perspectives, the soul perspective, the mind's perspective, and more importantly, our higher outlook on things in a more beyond future. There's all futuristic aspects here, and especially when you start to see Neptune in the North Node, there is a soul futuristic aspect that's connected to a much more harmonious, emotional, beautiful, caretaking life that doesn't have to be so hard. But it's that Chiron in Aries that really is this having to kind of really go deep into your ego and really see there's these weird formulations, these weird stories, these weird idolizations of mind and belief that have caused discourse that we have all been thrown a curveball with. And it's not easy to sometimes deal with curveballs. I don't know, if you don't play baseball, try to use a different analogy, but you gotta time it right. And I feel that the timing has been right in our lives to where we're at this beautiful place right now to where if you look at this week, we're going to have great, great aspects. But there is that ego aspect that's hard with the moon in Aries this week that's going to square this Saturn-Pluto. That's going to square Mars. So this is going to be big because as we're coming into this moon in Aries, which is all fired up and reactive, with the sun in Gemini, it's happy. The sun in Gemini is like, woohoo, we got moon in Aries. We can figure things out and just take action and do it. But there's that big block to where it's like Saturn and Pluto, which can be kind of persuasive and demanding of no, do it this way or whatever. But here's Neptune saying well, don't listen to that. Listen to what feels right in your emotion. What's human? And last week I really only touched a little bit of the basis about being human, being human has feelings. That's the difference between what we call human and quote unquote AI, right? There's this whole like artificial part of ourselves that we have to release now this week. And in Gemini is not artificial intelligence, I'm sorry to say. Gemini actually is connected to a neutral point of view where it will look at both sides. So I guess that's why it does rule computers, it does rule CPUs. But the CPU is running programs that maybe are not really a humanistic anymore. We really have to get back to our human quality here of feeling what's right to us. And with that moon in Aries, square Mars, square the nodes, squaring Saturn, Pluto, we now come into this emotional identification pressure point while Mercury is in the middle of creating that opposition to Jupiter, and both of them in opposition create that T-square to Neptune, to where we have to reconfigure our stories. We have to reconfigure what our life looks like. We have to reanalyze the data from a human emotional point of view. And it's been very hard to understand the data in life right now because the computer has been off, it has been in a bag, and it's been thrown at the bottom of the ocean for like the last 6 months. So running on our lives lately has been really difficult because we've been just running off of this kind of like, who knows where it's all going. But the truth is, it's about defining what that new story is. And with Mercury opposed Jupiter, I love that transit, especially in their home signs. I mean, the last time we had this was back in 2007? So, it's been a long time. It's been a long time since we reconfigured the processor to go, okay, well, what are we going to run here and where's it going, right? We only run a program to do something with it, to go someplace with it, or to run a story, or to, in today's world, whether you're in your iPhone or your Android or whatever, you want to play a movie? What movie do you want to play? Especially Neptune and Pisces rules movies, media, and more importantly, these more visual and spiritual, I guess you could say imaginative forces behind this story that we are recreating right now. But it comes into a lot of conflict with this ego that had identified things, and through all the trauma, you have to remember that there was massive trauma through 2018. It was a year of Mars retrograde conjunct the South Node. And as we enter into June this week, how ironic that if you look back a year ago from June, Mars was starting to stop. It was over the South Node at this point. And how ironic, here we are, Mars in Cancer, heading towards the North Node. Now last year, you have to remember that this has been a little bit difficult for us because it was traumatic last year. We thought that the roads that we were going down, that we were breaking through, that we were trying to rebel against, and Uranus was in square to this Mars. You have to remember that this is a whole different set of criteria here. That the stories from last year have to be rewritten now. Because if you think about it, last year at this time, at this exact time, the stories in which we thought we had wrote actually got rewritten into this crazy Mars retrograde, Aquarius, Uranus and Taurus, almost like really not understanding. And you have to remember as well, as Uranus keeps moving forward, so does Neptune. And what's been interesting is this semi-square between Neptune and Uranus that has been, oh yeah, you think you know the whole story, right? You think you know what's the best for your soul in a way, but are you really evaluating the value of situations and people and connection that makes sense? Or are you alienating yourself in your own desires, your own hunger, your own greed, your own way that you want to feel? I mean, that's kind of, if you just take the understanding of Uranus that finished in Aries here in 2019, in March, and finally entered into Taurus for the next 7 years, there is this kind of shift when it comes to the collective and when it comes to our own understanding of how we connect our whole soul, body, mind, and all of the systems in our world to, are we really following what soul says and emotion, or have we kind of lost ourselves into the physical reality? Have we lost ourselves into kind of our own wanting to feel something that's connected to something that's part of this identification story and this process of this kind of dramatic trauma that happened last year of things not going the way we wanted to. And so it's almost like we almost start to believe that things can't go a certain way or things are never going to go over here. Because Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn definitely start to show up with the illusion of the South Node, like there's no way, no. But this North Node with Mars is saying there is a way. That we have to pay attention to feelings. Even though they're laughing at Mars, because Mars in Cancer is definitely not at its strongest position. It's at its weakest. But with the North Node there, and with Neptune aligning with it, and with Juno aligning to it, there's this beauty attaching. The universe is giving beauty and giving, it's almost like, you know, they say in the Bible that the meek will inherit the earth. There is this element of like, we don't need to keep playing this really harsh game on ourselves, and then this story has to be rewritten now. And it can be from a beautiful place. And I think that the number one thing to remember is it really doesn't matter about what everybody else's perception of everything is. It is your own. It is your own connection to spirit. And this includes even whether it's astrologers or psychic or tarot readers or anybody outside and what their perspective is, that you have to listen to the channel of God itself. You have to listen to the channel within yourself too that connects with God, as that's the story that feels right to you. That's the story that this is being told to be rewritten now with this Mercury square Neptune. It can be a little confusing. And I don't know if you all remember in 2015, in May into June of 2015 at this time, so 4 years ago, we had Mercury stop, retrograde, square Neptune. That was, I don't want to go through that one again. So that could bring up some kind of weird stuff. You got to look at ever since we went through the whole 2012 cycle and Saturn entered Scorpio in October, you know, what was it, 6th, 5th, 2012? Like literally it's been trauma central. And this is us realizing that the stories that we have to recreate, because if you think about it on a really deep scale here, well, Jupiter, the last time that it was in Sagittarius in 2007, was a whole different set of circumstances. So we haven't had a chance to rewrite our outcomes, rewrite our visions, rewrite our belief systems. We're running on really old data, and we're running on CPUs like back on the Pentium 3 and 4 or whatever it was. We're not even on Intel like Core 3 and all that kind of stuff, or AMD and stuff. Now I'm getting all computer nerd on you all. But I'm just trying to tell you that we're running on these old computers, 12 years old, about the belief in what that computer can do, about what your environment can look like. And with trauma from last year, and trauma even just going back, just follow the Pluto and Uranus square of 2012 through 2015. And the traumas through those years with Saturn in the North Node in Scorpio with eclipses and an eclipse on Venus and its detriment, right? Like on October 23rd of 2014. I mean, talk about traumas and complete annihilation of what we had thought our lives and our beliefs were going from 2007. Because remember in 2008, Pluto went into Capricorn and said, change the whole system. So we actually rewrote our codes with this hopeful, optimistic view in 2007 that just kaplunked in 2008. So it's no wonder that this last decade has been like, is this thing ever going to shift? Is this thing ever going to change? Well, I'll be very honest with you, ever since the 2012 cycle of the Mayan calendar shift, I'm sorry to say, welcome to the new energy. But I'm here to tell you that it's been hard because we haven't rewritten the understanding and the story of how we're going to go through it. Why do you think at the end of this week is a new moon in Gemini? After rewriting the stories, after looking at this beautiful, more humanistic connection to things that feel right, why is there a reset with Venus to Pluto and to Saturn in Capricorn to restructure this vision based upon creating things that are more connected to Neptune, our soul, our more beautiful vision? We've never had this in our lives, folks. And yes, somebody probably is thinking right now, and I'm channeling it, well, I know astrology enough to know that January 2020, Saturn and Pluto meet, so it's almost like we're rewriting and then going to go through another major kaplunk. That is true. But if this is what makes consciousness expand, that by understanding what happened 12 years ago and into 11 years ago when Pluto went into Capricorn and kaplunked the whole thing, and Uranus then entered into Aries in 2010 and had the whole Pluto-Uranus square happen, and then we went into, that was also at the same time that Jupiter and Uranus were conjuncting, and Saturn was opposing Uranus and Aries during that time. That was a crazy time that we are coming through. and that we have to rewrite the story now. And even though, yes, there's going to be these major, harder aspects of life, maybe it's because we're running off those old storylines, those old computers, those old understandings. And so it is a rewrite at the highest capacity. And I'm excited for it because this new moon in Gemini is about the rewritten element. And the dark moon that's going to happen in Taurus, remember, the moon in Taurus is exalted, which will conjunct Venus in its home sign and will pass over Uranus, which is in its fall. So this is going to be a really weird Venus, because this is like the first time that we're going to have Venus, moon that are very happy, but in a dark phase, with Uranus there that's in its fall, of releasing old values, old things that we think only make us feel good, that are deeply connected with ego, because of these transits that are happening right now with Mars, because of these transits that are happening with this moon in Aries, and the shedding that must go down with this Saturn-Pluto, and the rebirthing process of rewriting the stories off new, spiritual, aligned human values, and a new, brighter awareness of consciousness, that if we rewrite things from an understanding and let go of our very powerful, self-written code of laws of how things should be, especially with Saturn and Pluto and the South Node and Jupiter in its home sign, we can become overly, especially because the South Node is heading towards Sagittarius. Remember that, folks. That's coming in 2020. And we are going to have South Node Jupiter coming here at the end of the year, right when that Saturn-Pluto conjuncts, that our beliefs are bigger than we all realize. And I want to say this before we get on the couch to do the charts. Remember that the last time that Jupiter in its home sign of Sag squared over to Neptune in its home sign of Pisces was 1852 into 1853. And during that time was a big battle, not only politically, if you look at the understandings of what happened with the presidency at that time, one of the worst presidents of all time came about at that time, as far as what the presidential scholars say, but it was because of this whole battle of what is right and what is wrong. And it actually brought up slavery. It actually brought up at a time where people were using alcohol, and people were completely also going to the West to find gold, and then claim jumpers, and then there was no gold there. Levi's came out. Like, you got to realize, like, it was like the railroad started to get built. Like, the ideas of it started to come out to bring the railroad. Like, we are now building these new railroads to places that we have to write the code of a more beautiful life. And when it comes to the determination of what's right and wrong, it's about what feels human. And this is where, if it doesn't feel human, if it doesn't feel connected to a divine, powerful God and light and beautiful source, you know that that's not a road you should be taking anymore. And I will give everybody this, I guess you could say, hall pass. Here's your hall pass, everyone. We all have not been in the right mental, emotional, spiritual, and belief system set, that we all get a hall pass to rewrite and look at ourselves, take apart the costume, take apart the old values, take apart the traumas that have happened, take apart the past, and rewrite this from a new space. And if it feels human, if it feels divine, if it feels like it's connected to a better path, where this is a time that, yes, it's gnarly, but the truth deeply with this Cancer, and with these eclipses coming in Cancer and Capricorn, but this is going to be the north eclipses, right? The north node eclipses in Cancer with this solar eclipse. It's about that we can go through this more comfortable. We can go through this much more feeling connected instead of cold, disconnected, and alone. And I think that we've all faced a lot of feelings of aloneness with Chiron and Aries, but there still will be that no matter what. But that we find when we go deep into that aloneness, we actually find where the ego is causing us to feel alone. And it's when we get rid of that and we rewrite those stories this week, well, guess what? We're on to the most beautiful journey into paradise beginning, even though, yes, I know Mars is heading towards some major oppositions to Saturn and Pluto. I know there's some major things coming up here. And I just want to say this last thing, that the sun comes to 9 degrees this week of Gemini. And that's a big deal because this is where Aldebaran is, and it opposes Antares. And you can go see that in the sky at night. When you go look up, you know, about 9, 10 p.m., 11 p.m., you'll see Jupiter right there, the brightest star. Well, Venus is, but Venus doesn't come out till in the morning, right before the sun rises. But you'll see Saturn, you'll see Jupiter. And what's interesting is you'll see Antares right next to Jupiter, that red giant just blinking, okay? The sun's going to oppose that position. So when you're at night this week and you're looking at that, just know that the sun is on Aldebaran, the opposite side with Archangel Michael, this much more like facing of this more red, much more, I guess you could say, it's like our root chakra, that we kind of are in opposition against, that we actually don't need to run off this root chakra so much, but run off this much more human, much more connected to, you know, Gemini is a positive sign, remember that. It's a masculine sign, but it rules the twins, because in the spring you see the twins run out, right? Like the twins meaning like 2 deers, like a male and a female, or 2 little rabbits, a male and a female, or it could even be 2 friends, or it could be 2, that's the whole thing about being neutral. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be male, it doesn't have to be female, but it's just the duality of running together into a beautiful and amazing new world. And that's what's this crossroads right now, before we step into massive energies that are going to get kind of weird here in the next couple weeks. We need to rewrite the story. We need to rewrite it right now. And there is the amazing ability right now to have the most beautiful things start to come up once we go deep into our Chiron wounds and our ego issues that have made us feel alone. Rewrite the story that has been 12 years needed to be rewritten, and finally get to the point to where we don't need to be divisive like we were in 1852 and 1853 during that last Jupiter-Neptune square. We don't need to do that anymore. And we don't need to escape anymore into our aloneness, where you'll find nothing but emptiness that lies there. Let's take a look at the charts. Being alone. We all are alone in this world. I think one thing that Chiron and Aries reminds us, even though we're not at the same time, but we are, because we experience things in our own. It's not like everybody's in the bathroom with you every fucking minute of every day, you know? So not everybody's in the shower with you every day, unless I guess you're in communal showers. But that's the whole thing. There is this alone part that we have to go through where we feel alone. That's where we'll find the nitty gritty of what needs to morph and change. As Chiron is a morpher. And Chiron, you know, takes on other people's energies and it's not the healing process of like, here, let me like get out a scalpel and a Band-Aid and some alcohol and some hydrogen peroxide for ya. But the healing of actually like, I'll take on your burdens, I'll take on your crap, I got you for a second. And I think when it's within ourselves now, when we go, you know what? I know I've got these burdens, I've got these things, you know what? I'm gonna face them, I'm gonna take them on. And then when you do that, you realize in the process of going through it, you go, why am I feeling this alone? What was the cause of all this? And it will all just start to pop up ego shit. Oh, my ego did this at that point. And then you're in a place of like, where your beliefs, your mind, your soul start to have to rewrite this and go, you know, I don't have to live that way anymore. I don't have to be this way anymore. So this is going to bring up a lot of past guilt, past situations that we have to rewrite, that we are all forgiven. Neptune is reminding us with the North Node of Cancer that we need to be caring to other people, we need to be caring to ourselves, that we need to be forgiving to ourselves, because this is aligning with the forgiveness. This is also going to bring up past situations that we wish turned out differently, but that we need to have compassion and let go of, and find a new emotional story that we actually create to actually, you know, get through. Like tomorrow is the 2-year anniversary of my godfather's death, and there's no way that I ever thought he would die. It was supposed to be at my wedding and happened 4 days before my wedding, and it was a very gnarly cycle in my life. And so as I look at those things, you know, I know he's with me every day. And so for me, I'm lucky because even though it's so traumatic and it's so hard, when I think about John every day and I see him in my life every day, for me it was easy because I was willing to accept that. But there's things in life that maybe I don't accept. There's like things that I've done in my life where maybe I shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, why did I do that? Like, this is gonna bring all that up to forgive yourself, and that you can turn back to the human side of things, get rid of the ego, get rid of the old like, oh, I gotta have it look this way and have it be this way. And I wanna show you all this. I'm gonna jump ahead to Wednesday because I wanna show you this Juno aspect here, which is pretty cool. So here's this North Node Juno here. This is pretty cool. It's actually happening as we're talking tonight. But what's interesting to me about it is how it's connected over to this Venus in its home sign. It's connected to Venus and Neptune in its sextile in their home signs. And this North and South Node, of course, is right here. So what we get out of this is a lot. One, Juno is going to oppose Saturn. So it's like Juno wants to find the true, I would say, calling of what we want to feel with people and connection. And I think Juno is much more than just, I guess you could say, like, I don't know, the kind of partner we want. I always find Juno as being like the ultimate understanding of true compassion and love from a space where we feel understood. And so that understood place is just through being vulnerable and truthful with emotion. That's why Neptune is trining this position, which I think is beautiful, at 18 to the North Node, that we have to come into this. We have to face the past, number one. Especially Cancer by itself is the holder of that fourth house, right? It is the holder of the IC in your chart. It is the holder of your roots. And so we are kind of getting deep into the roots now of our soul. This is where the work is, not outside, which is the opposition of this Pluto, Saturn, and South Node, where we think it's about what we make. If we trim the tree a little bit better, or if we, if we paint the house a different color, we'll get rid of the ghosts. Okay, yeah, right. Well, you're going to have to go inside. You're going to need to change that thing. You need to get something. You know what I mean? You got to go deep inside. Or it's like, I think it's the most hilarious when people try to fix toilets. They're like, I'll just get some like Drano and I'll just pour it down. It's like, dude, you got to get like a Roto-Rooter out here. Like, you got to get like the snake and you got to go deep inside. You just can't like pour anything on the outside and think it's just going to fix it all. This Pluto and Saturn and Capricorn just are delusional with the South Node there, thinking that what adjustments you make on the outside, what adjustments you make kind of in this non-human form, where we kind of lose our own humanity, or you try and just keep going up the ladder higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and put yourself to a position to where there is no return, is because you're too afraid to face the deep truth of your emotional foundation. And that's what this Gemini energy is trying to help do, because as Mercury is going to be squaring Neptune at 18, we cannot, even though Mercury squared Neptune in their home signs can be like, oh my gosh, I'm confused. No, it is looking in the eye of the storm, and the storm within yourself that has caused disruption, that has caused you to be disaligned. And I think that it's interesting to see that Venus is supporting this Juno. And with Venus in its home sign, that this means that this is rewriting projects, relationships, and everything to being more in alignment with a root foundation and figuring out where the roots have to change about things that are going to feel better instead of the outside. Oh, if I throw some lipstick on the pig, it'll look better. Or if I change my outfit, maybe they'll like me more. Or if I keep, it's like this isn't the way. It's not this external, part of things that need to change. It's the internal stuff. And that's what's, I think, so beautiful, because this moon in Aries is causing this disruption in a way, because, it's emotionally identified through this Chiron position now, where it does feel alone. It does feel isolated, but it has to emotionally accept the ego's way of isolation, and to help identify who you are and who you really want to be, because this moon is going to be squaring to Mars, which is hard, right? Mars and the moon are definitely wish they would be in a much better place. Like, it's not like a mutual reception of like, oh yeah, they are. It's not a fun one because, the moon is in the sign of Mars and Mars is in the sign of the moon. They'd rather be switched, but they're going to square. And so you've got this part where the moon is like, I just want to be comfortable. I don't want to have to go ride my horse alone out like, dun, 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 dun. I'm going to be alone. While Mars in Cancer is like, oh, well, I kind of want to like do what I want to do, but I got all these emotions to deal with. Shit. So there's this, I got to deal with emotions. I got to deal with feeling. And that's what humanity is. And I think that, I'm not saying that we've lost our humanity, but I think that we've all reached a point, if you just look at the understanding of the last year, we can just take it, I can take it from any point. But you look at the last year of Mars retrograde, South Node, yeah, you know what? We were kind of crazy. We did lose our minds, and we have been, ever since then, kind of in a space where nothing has made sense. Everything's been like, every story is like, what? What? Oh, really? Really? What? That those stories need to end, and that's the whole thing about this Mercury, and I'm going to show you guys all right now. And we'll actually go and we'll show you today, because as this Tuesday, and I'll just run through really quick with it, Mercury is getting ready for that opposition to Jupiter, but Mercury is getting ready for that square to Neptune, but it is this moon Chiron thing. So Tuesday is kind of, don't feel weird about who you want to be. Not who you want to be from a sense that's causing you to fall farther and farther away from your emotional needs, but realizing that there is this kind of, I would say, odd element of who you are that is going to be accepting of what you really know you want, that is going to bring you more humanity, bring you more of what feels right, but it might not look the way that you expected it to, or it might be extremely, because especially for the ego, right? The ego does not like to be humbled. It's embarrassing. There's this embarrassment that's coming to us, by which Neptune's trying to say, especially I think with Mercury, like, hey, I know this is hard, but it's okay that our egos are hurt. Please rewrite the story now, and it's forgiven. It's forgiven. Chill. And I think Mercury's having a hard time with that. Like, but yeah, you know what that looks like? Or you know how I've said this, or I've said that, or I've put it out that way, or I've done this, or I've done that, or blah, 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 blah. It's like, shut up. Just shut up and relax and just rewrite the story, and it's all over. And you can just rewrite it. And why do you think we have erasers? This is what Neptune says. Why do you think we have erasers? And I think that this is about erasing this embarrassment of just being a human and learning to learn from our own, not mistakes, but lessons that have humbled us in a way to not feel embarrassed, but to see that we're actually empowering ourselves by actually getting rid of an old costume, an old identification, an old mindset, an old belief system of identity that really has been in survival mode through the last 12 years. And that, to release that's okay. And that's not embarrassing. Because you know what? For people who are afraid to be vulnerable at this moment, or somebody brought my live last night on my Deep Love Tarot, like, I don't like vulnerability. Like, that just sounds like weakness. I don't agree with that statement at all. I would say that vulnerability is the ultimate of greatness. Because when you step into vulnerability is when true consciousness can come through. It's when you step into, why do you think that Aries is after Pisces, or why do you think Aries is first, as we go on this fool's journey of I've got this whole thing figured out? And why do you think we end with, the World card, this more vulnerable, letting the world dictate the understanding of things, and are open to all aspects of it and receiving it all in instead of us charging the way. And I think that this is where we are into a much more ability to receive now. But if you're gonna not be in that space, or if you're around others that not, you just have to forgive them and know that's what that is. And that brings up victim mentality a lot, because we're dealing on very high scale aspects of that. So let's jump to Thursday, we can start to actually look at this pretty intense Mercury-Neptune thing. Oh, sorry, it's Thursday. We already showed you Wednesday. Here we go. So on the 30th of Thursday, this is where things get intense. Because there's that sun at 9, so that's on Aldebaran, right? But then here's Mercury opposed Jupiter. Now, this one's a big one because Mercury and Jupiter, of course, are friends, but neutral friends, right? They do clash because Mercury is facts and Jupiter's like, I don't care about your facts. Like, okay, Chinese food tastes like this in America, but I want to go explore what Chinese food tastes like in China. I want to go adventure there. I want to go experience it. It's like, well, it's probably going to taste like this. It's like, it probably is, but I don't know unless I go and look at it. I don't know. It's okay. Those are the facts. So we are kind of having to take facts, but also at the same time not block ourselves from experiencing what we are feeling that we need to go experience. Now, with Neptune in square to both, there's this really deep question, and I think it's a very deep underlying question, which is why this North Node and Neptune are conjunct of like, well, what feels like the most comfortable road? What feels divinely guided to a place that is going to make me feel better? Especially with Venus in the middle of it all. Venus is at 18 with the nodes during this whole Mercury opposite Jupiter, during this square to Neptune. Also, the moon in Aries will exactly be squaring Saturn, Pluto, and the South Node, but trining over to Jupiter. So this is where the ego does kind of have to, in our reaction to things, and our emotional understanding of who we are, our need to expand to places we've never been before. That doesn't mean that maybe some of the environment or circumstances have to change, but maybe you've never gone into a situation emotionally that you've never been before in a certain circumstance. Maybe in others you do have to go on a complete new adventure or rewrite the whole entire vision. But I feel like this is a lot of us kind of going deep into realizing these are Saturn, Pluto retrograde. This is Jupiter retrograde. It's not like there is much more out there beyond to go try and search for, but with what's within that needs to be in places that we've never been before. And with Neptune stopped, remember, we're entering June. Guess what planet goes retrograde in June? Neptune. That Neptune's even getting ready to go. So there is not much out beyond to go, that there's something else out beyond. I think that's one of the biggest realizations of the moon this week in Aries is it's all amped up and going, wait, okay, I got Jupiter, but it's retrograde. Oh, I got Saturn and Pluto squaring me. Oh, wait, they're both retrograde. They got the South Node there. There's this been delusion of what I can accomplish and where I can go. Does it fulfill me, though? Does it fulfill me with goodness, with protection? Protection can come from all sorts of ways. The protection of feeling like you have support. And that's why Aries squares Cancer, is when we become, this is my way or the highway, or this is the way that I am, or this is the way that I am. Like, some people might not support that. Like, there's people who don't support astrology, right? So, but I'm not going to go fight them. Sure, I'll make little innuendo, like little weird comments, like thou that shall not be named, who made cards and denounced the cards and denounced all New Age activity. But like, am I going to go fight that? No. So that person doesn't support New Age people anymore. Great, wonderful. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to go emotionally react and throw a battle storm against that and create disharmony and go after this conquering aspect, because Pluto, Saturn, and South Node is the delusion of conquer to achieve your goal, when really it's like the goal with the North Node and Mars now to repair the past, which we can combine that in so many different ways. I mean, even if you look at where the node is right now, where were we in 2001? I mean, it was pre-9/11. We had the North Node in Cancer. We had eclipses coming on America's sun, and we're coming into that in the next couple months, not even a month. And take a look at Saturn in Cancer that was at that time. There was node Saturn stuff, that was starting to come together. It was Jupiter, Saturn in 2000. Saturn in 2002 started coming Gemini. So it was after 9/11 and stuff that we had to start to repair a lot of this emotional stuff. We're lucky that right now we're at a place to where we don't have to deal with that. We have to deal more with, let's just find what feels good. Let's find what feels right. Let's not go to war over conquering. Let's go to war, and not even war, because Mars in Cancer doesn't want to go to war. Mars in Cancer wants to identify, to have support. And that's why it's a hard placement, because if you don't feel supported, you don't feel like you can get where you want to go. You don't feel like you can accomplish things. You can't get out of bed in the morning, Or why do you think, if you're homeless, it's a very difficult thing to feel like you can go anywhere in life, because without a foundation, without a root, it's very hard, So we don't have to go homeless right now, whether you call that real or esoterically, spiritually, because Venus is connected to this in a beautiful way in Taurus. And it is about getting out of our own, value systems that are self-serving, with a moon in Aries, square Saturn, Pluto, that this is about serving ourselves and others in a more beautiful way. And being okay with rewriting the story completely now. And that is why the Sun opposed Antares at 9 degrees of Sag, is understanding that we do have to let go of kind of this more, I don't even want to say reptilian, although it is very reptilian, this reptilian part of ourselves, that we need to be lighter, that we need to be more free. And there's that freedom that we can find if we allow ourselves to just put down so much of this identification of how it should all look, and rewrite everything, and look at the data and look at what is possible, and what is possible from things where data has been good. Maybe we have to rehash with Neptune square Mercury. Hey, did you forget about this in the past that might be good? Oh, well, I did have some bad with it too, or whatever, because you got to remember with Mercury, it's only looking at good and bad, and it's neutral. So it's like, why don't you relook at this stuff? And Jupiter's having to do the same thing. Okay, is this good? Is this bad? What is this a journey I want to go down? Did I learn everything here? Did I not? This is where people change perspective completely on their life. And this is where you have to support people no matter what their version of perspective is. Thou that shall not be named, I support her decision on going against New Agers, even though I don't agree with it, because that's the perspective that makes her feel good. Or him, right? Thou that not shall not be named. We all know who we're talking about. And so we have to show that forgiveness, and we have to move into a place of not pushing agendas on anybody. Because if we push agendas on anybody now with Venus and the North Node, it's not going to go well. You're not going to feel supported. And if you're not feeling like you're supporting somebody else in their wants and their needs, well, then you're creating chaos in the world. And be careful with Mercury, Jupiter, square Neptune. Be careful about what belief systems, what ideas, and more importantly, what subconscious traumas and triggers that you've stored to project onto others based off this moon, square Saturn, and Pluto that is emotionally either A, projecting off of what you don't have and what they have, or what you are alone about, or what you just feel that you don't have in your identity or yourself that maybe that you see somebody else that does. This is where you have to not, with Mercury square Neptune and with Jupiter square Neptune, not start to push this kind of crazy, chaotic, mental and emotional and belief storm onto others, especially with Mars and Rahu getting closer. There's rage, there's anger, and it's emotional. And that's when you don't deal with your emotional truth. You don't deal with the roots. You know, of course you're going to go freak out when the toilet's backed up all the way because you just kept thinking Drano will fix it when you didn't get to the bottom of it. And that you didn't want to even look in that direction. You just kept forcing it to be a certain way. No, that it's got to look this way. And when the universe is saying, maybe we do need to rewrite this whole code because the website's not working right. Everything's kind of been messed up. And that goes back 12 years. So as we come to this weekend, kind of finish things off here. We come to Friday. We got this moon that's coming dark. It's going to be with Venus and Uranus. So there's a lot to go on here in Taurus. The moon's exalted. It feels good. Mercury's off the opposition. Mercury's doing 2 degrees a day, so it's way off that. But it's interesting to me that Mars comes to the 10th degree of the exact degree of where the solar eclipse is going to be on July 2nd. And so we are kind of starting to come into activating this eclipse energy because now we are also with the sun within 30 days of the solar eclipse, okay? So we are now within a month of eclipse time, which starts to become fate train time. I don't know if anybody remembers fate train, beep, beep, beep. Because guess what? This moon is closing out these old things we're attached to. Because Taurus is attached, right? Like, it's an old pair of shoes. Do I really need to keep those in that trash bag in my closet? Like, do I wear them ever? What can you bring room in? This is what Uranus is asking. That's new. That might be better. But we have a hard time shedding off, especially with this Jupiter-Neptune square that's building even closer, and with this Mercury that just came through that, this new rewritten story. And it's a fast rewritten story. Mercury's so fast through this whole T-square. So it's almost like, okay, data, yeah, okay, boom, 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 okay. And you have to, this is where you have to go off your gut with this Neptune trine the North Node this whole week. And be forgiving of the past and move through. And Neptune and Saturn are starting to align again. In sextile, the mission is coming back online. We've been a little bit off the mission a little bit. The mission is coming back online. Venus is trine Saturn on the day that the moon is in Taurus with Venus. So we do have to restructure now, redecide. And this is also big choices of what to purge and what to keep. So this is a big cleaning house. Spring cleaning, we are in the spring here in the north. I know it's the fall down south, your fall cleaning before the winter, but here in the north, this is our, even though I sound like we're in Winterfell or something here in the fucking north. But here we are, 30 days from an eclipse, Mars at the eclipse point. And, you know, this is becoming the new definition of where things are going this week. Like, and people may not believe the stories because Mercury opposed Jupiter. I don't believe that. What are you talking about? That's the new data? And with Neptune there, it's like, what? That came out of like nowhere. But that's just what it is. And it's about forgiving everybody so we can create a much more beautiful world this week. And in your life, shedding the identities and the value systems and the things that you've been holding on to with this dark moon purging on top of Venus, which you'll see here on Saturday, which let's just go there now. So on Saturday, June 1st, rabbit, make sure you say that. But look at this, Moon, Venus, conjunction, dark, right, within 30 degrees, balsamic phase. And, you know, we got this 10-degree eclipse that's coming in Cancer. And how ironic that, you know, here we are, we're in this like 30-day cycle here of this eclipse cycle that's coming. And we're closing out old values that Venus is trine Pluto. Change, redirection of what path we want to have based on what we're going to chuck from our old beliefs, our old systems. Because we do have some weird quincunx energy going on with Venus and Jupiter. That we have to re-look at our stories, our beliefs about what what we are creating and where is the mission going, especially with Neptune and Saturn coming back together in alignment. And we are getting ready for this new moon. Mercury as well at 24 degrees now is actually opposing the point to where Jupiter went retrograde at 24 just months ago. And so we are about to go beyond into the space in opposition, and Mercury is about to head towards where Mars and Mercury and Mars meet during their opposition points of Saturn Pluto coming in the next couple weeks. So this paradise I've been talking about is here, but it's weird about the fears that we have about stepping into it. And I would say a lot of those fears come within this ground we've never been before, and whether that's internally or externally, and there's a combination of both that this week is setting the tone for. And kind of setting the tone in where this stuff's gonna go, because when we come into Sunday, we're just in a total dark phase. You know, we got this moon in Gemini, it's excited, but you know, it is kind of waiting. We got Venus trine Pluto, which I think is a good thing exact. As the dark phase of the moon finishes out, this new moon begins, this is a rechange of partnerships, rechange of projects, rechange of your values, rechange of what feels good after a new story that's rewritten. And we are getting ready for Jupiter Neptune in the next couple of weeks, in the middle of Mars now, getting ready for its opposition to these big points. And Mercury is flying fast, getting ready to come into Cancer and really start to understand even more of the human element, even more of the emotional element, and even more of either the rage or the confidence that we build off a support system, that we have to support ourselves. We have to learn to take care of ourselves better and connect, as this North Node is leaving 18 degrees at the end of this week. And Neptune is going to be at 18, so we're not going to see this Neptune North Node for a long time in trine, in the rest of our lives, actually, when it comes to a North Node in a water sign, until we get North Node Neptune in Pisces, which I think is at the very end of that cycle, which I think is pretty crazy, actually, if you look at that. But that's in the 2020s. That's pretty gnarly. But this is where we really define our spiritual life in a whole new direction. We rewrite, and then look at this new moon on Monday. Holy cow, of course we rewrite. Right when Venus comes off of the Saturn-Pluto trine, of course we rewrite, because now we have redefined our values, our projects, our relationships. We've got this new moon at 12 degrees and 33 minutes, which I think is awesome because, yes, it's got a minor square to Neptune. It's not that strong, though. Yes, it's kind of in the middle of this opposition to Jupiter. It's not that strong, though. But what it is we're at a place in our lives where this is kind of like medium ground. If you actually kind of take a look at this is kind of interesting here with the 12, right? So, yes, it's semi-sextile to Mars, but no longer is there anything except the midpoint, I guess you could say, but it's not even really a midpoint because 19, so 19 plus 4, is, so 19 plus 4 is 23, so 23 minus, so it's 19, half of 19 is 8, so 8 plus 4 is 12. Oh yeah, there it is, the midpoint exactly of the Uranus, Venus, and Taurus is semi-sextile the new moon. I'm getting deep on you all. Which means that this new moon is about the rewriting of not only the story that we rewrote this week, that's been 12 years overdue, but also the re-identification of bringing in and out of things about our own values or our own desires, but our own kind of, hard ways of it looking a certain way. And we have to connect now with this taking action from a much more emotional, comfortable human place, and one that is connected deeply, because Mars is going to start trining that midpoint of Venus-Uranus, which means that we have this freedom that can come from redefining our values from a better place. And that this new moon can set the tone for a whole entire new environment, for a whole entire new perspective, a new state of mind. And with Chiron, that's not really exactly making any aspects hard to this new moon, but everything's a little off, if that makes sense. But it's beautiful because what it's doing is it's allowing us to healed through rewriting, creating a better environment, creating an understanding that when we hold on to things a certain way too hard and we're not flexible, and we also are not willing to look at other options, even from options that come from a Neptunian square that maybe we aren't willing to look at, and that we're not going to escape from looking at them, that we're not going to escape from looking at the data of the truth, that we cannot escape the truth, that we can't create stories to escape from the truth either. We have to actually look deeply in soul. We have to get to a very humbled position, a very puristic position of soul. We have to get to a godly position, and we need to ask ourselves, like, I know it's very kind of Christian, but it's like, what would God do? I know it's what would Jesus do, but what would Source do? What would divine do? What would angels do? What would the highest of the high do? Because there's a deep connection with why Mercury is Hermetic. It's the messenger of the gods. And there's this message from the gods that is coming through this Gemini transit of Mercury, this Gemini transit of a new moon, at a time in which we are preparing for this big battle of Mars, Mercury, North Node oppose Saturn, Pluto, and the South Node in Capricorn, of how do we grow a better world, not from the outside, but from the roots from the inside. And that's what this is about, that we have to listen to the message. We have to listen to the data that's coming from a place where we're not creating delusional stories, because we're willing to accept the truth that God and the signs are bringing us towards. We're eradicating and we're erasing those identifications of the stories and how we believe them. But is that the way that God's looking at it? Or is that the way that we're projecting it in our subconscious or in our patterns of how we want to self-sabotage? That we have to take a relook at, what are those patterns? What are we self-sabotaging here when message is changing? And we don't want to fall into this more Capricornian, South Node, Pluto, like story of destruction, but in a story of connection and bringing something wholesome to our lives. And wherever it doesn't feel wholesome, and you can't start getting all drifty into escapism of the truth, because that's easy with Jupiter and Neptune. It was easy, and I'm just going to be honest, it was easy for the Confederates to say, yeah, slavery's fine, but I'm sure if they really dug deep, they really would have felt like, yeah, it's kind of fucked up. Not kind of, but it is. And so we have to really look at ourselves, because this is we can only use history. And what's interesting, and I'm going to end this right now. I know it's been a long night, long day, or long deep astrology, but we have to take a look at 1852 and 1853, because Uncle Tom's Cabin, the book, came out in 1852. There was also a contradicting book, and I'll actually put out, I did put this in my magazine, but the editors that I worked with thought it was, I think they thought it was a little too much to put out there at Walmart and Target. So I was like, okay, I get it. Like, we pulled that article out. But I did a lot of research on 1852 and 1853, and there was even a book that came out advocating for slavery at the time. And so there became this big belief battle. And I'm going to go into politics because just we got to look at the scope here. Today I'll look at all the networks. I'll look at CNN, I'll look at Fox, and I'll look at MSNBC. I just jump around real quick right before I go into my readings and stuff, and because I know I'm doing horoscopes every day. So the narrative of Fox News for 2 years was collusion there's no way. Now the other side, James Comey just came out with an op-ed saying, oh, there's no way. You can go look and you're not going to find nothing over here about looking into the FBI or looking anything. So it's like the same narrative just now flipped, and they're both now flopping on each other, right? But while we're in it, we almost kind of don't know. And believe it or not, if you were somebody in 1852 and 1853 getting one side advocating for slavery, the other side not advocating for it, I know that it might sound crazy, but at that time, if you were a human being, and especially with the way that there was no news cycle, there was not a lot of like the printing press like there was, and like newspapers coming to your front door. It wasn't like that, you know, like information was all over the place. And right now with the internet and with stories coming out and you don't know what is real and you don't know, we all are in a crazy place. The only guide we have is our emotional feelings of what feels human. And you have to feel within yourself. You have to tap into your intuition, and you have to not allow your own beliefs, your old beliefs, or the beliefs of your family, or the beliefs of, you know, religious organizations or anything like this kind of like overwhelm you into kind of, you know, pushing you into this is what it is, right? This is what truth is. That's within you and what feels divine to humanity. And we all have to kind of individually right now, I think, kind of go through this crazy process in the world and kind of not, you know, oh, don't watch the media, that just sucks you dry, or don't watch this. No, we're at a pretty major moment here where we all have to kind of take all the information and kind of gather within ourselves and kind of gather deep inside of ourselves to see that this is actually helping us understand how to be more in touch with our humanity. And that really, are both sides right? I don't even know. I would say that both are wrong. They're both contradicting each other by doing the same story back and forth. Now, back in 1852, I'm just going off of what's ever on books and the library and Wikipedia and during my research and stuff. I don't have much else. I wasn't there, so I can't tell you except for however the story was written and how it was written back then. And that's one scary part about Jupiter Neptune, is the great Oz gets to tell the story and people believe it. So we are in a time in our lives where we can do that to ourselves, where maybe it's not really what is true to our true essence of our human emotional core, and also what we're seeing in the media, or also what we see outside. What if both sides are wrong? What if there's another side that we didn't hear about in 1852 and 1853 that didn't come out their way there was? There is weirdness with the whole understanding of how at the end of the Neptune cycle, we do get Abraham Lincoln, he becomes the president, we go through the Civil War, and then the man is shot and killed just the same way that JFK was at the same cycles of being a president elected on a Jupiter-Saturn year of a 0 year of 1860 and 1960, and here we are in a 2020 cycle coming with a Jupiter-Saturn. And if it's a new president that comes in 2020, doesn't matter what side, there's always something weird about how the energies of perception and how things are and everything fall on that president and go into a different way. So I just opened up a lot of can of worms there. I love you all. This is the last week of FutureLife.tv. I've been very vocal on YouTube, on the app, on everything, that it ends on May 31st. I've been very vocal that I have no part as far as like what your subscription is or anything, since I am not the owner of that platform, nor am I the owner of the app itself. That's all I'll say, for legal reasons. So it ends though May 31st. There's no more content on there. So everything now, my content is on highvibe.tv, which is 100% owned by me and Abby Moneyhun. So we made this whole platform, and we've got 8 other amazing people on there. We made this platform based off everything that I had learned from being, you know, putting out content on an app for 4.5 years, and what Abby had learned from being on the other side as a customer from it, of what didn't work, what worked. So I want to give people this understanding that this is where to go. And this is where also deep astrology will move. Now, deep astrology will always be free. But the way that deep astrology is going to be changing is that we're finding a time to where deep astrology will go live. It will be live streamed onto YouTube. We're probably going to go off Facebook, since a lot of people are not watching Facebook for some, you know, it's like, and I get it. But at the end of the show, just like kind of the old school TV, it will not be DVR'd. The DVR recording will be on highvibe.tv, where you can buy it for $1.99, or you could subscribe to highvibe.tv and get all the content and deep astrology and everybody else's videos. There's like almost over 100 videos a week. So including all my daily horoscopes, including all my weekly horoscopes, including all my weekly tarot. So like I'm trying to find a way to really still cater to people, but also at the same time, this is how High Vibe runs. This is how these studios run. This is how Deep Astrology runs. I wish I could just do this show, you know, the way that we do it just by just showing up, but, you know, there's got to be a way to do that. A lot of people use Patreon, a lot of people do that, but for me it's, we created our own platform and wanted to help expand people, and that also reminds me to let people know that, well, I'll cover this first and I'll go into that. The Apple TV app for High Vibe TV Spiritual Network's out. We're trying to erase the old High Vibe because we did some beta testing last year and they still haven't come off the App Store. So it's High Vibe TV Spiritual Network. So Android's out, Apple TV out, Roku's out. I think Amazon's about out, but the iOS app should be out in the next day or two. We just got rejected for some little stupid thing that they're fixing. But the last day of Future Life is on Friday. And for those that have supported me on that platform for 4.5 years, when it was the Leo King app, I want to say thank you very much. And if you choose not to come over to High Vibe for any reason, I just want to say thank you very much. For those that have never really wanted to ever look and see, this would definitely be the time to look and see, because this is what we've really put the last 1.5 years of our lives and energies into. And for those that are on Future Life and are moving over, I want to say thank you for your continual support and love, because it's touched me beyond more than you know, and it's been able to help provide, to create the content and to help others now, because the whole point of High Vibe, especially when Abby and I came up, we didn't even know it was going to be High Vibe yet, but we had this whole idea of a spiritual community and a spiritual network, that it really is about helping other people and all of us coming together, but also creating a place in the marketplace that there really is no spiritual network home like this, with day-to-day content that's new, fresh for you. And now we have it to where you're in control. So a lot of people had problems with Future Life, and I'd raised this red flag a million times, and I have 10,000 plus emails of customers who did too, that they had no control of their subscription. Or if they wanted to cancel, they had to wait for somebody to cancel for them. With this, you literally log into highvibe.tv, you have your account, and you can cancel it right there. It has cancel on your dashboard. So there's a lot of things like that. And we obviously, of course, recommend going to highvibe.tv to actually do the subscription, so you're not on Apple or on Google, and that's where weird stuff happens in apps. I'm just going to tell you, as somebody who's been in this world, you know, Apple connecting or Google connecting with our platform and everything, there might be mishaps sometimes. But when you're registered through highvibe.tv and then you get the app and you just log in, you have control through your account always through highvibe.tv, kind of like how Netflix works, instead of doing it through, you know, Apple or anything. So, and it also helps us because Apple and Google take 30%, if you didn't know, of all subscriptions. And that's how, you know, it's been operating for 4.5 years for me. So, but this isn't about me anymore. It's really about this new collective. So, and the one thing that I wanted to remind people of is we are looking for people that really want to help the world, that really want to put their message out there. And we take it seriously. And for those that want to do it, we definitely want you to send us a video, a 5-minute video, so we can see. We also have other services that we're going to put up for people who might not be there yet, but want to be, because you can come to these studios and we can work with you and help build you on camera and help build you, you know, your whole entire understanding of how you either want to be an astrologer or a tarot reader or a spiritual or wherever. We've got people doing mental health now. We got people doing intuitive. We got people coming in doing everything from crystals to sound healing. We have so many new awesome things coming out on highvibe.tv, including the stuff that's already on there. So I just want to say that because this is a pretty big major deal. I'll let you all know it's probably going to start next week or the week next, where the High Vibe or Deep Astrology now will be on YouTube live at a certain time. We'll announce. Then it will go off, and then you can watch the DVR on highvibe.tv and just purchase it or be a subscriber. So where you always will get it. But I'm creating new shows that will continually to be here on YouTube about astrology. Of course, my Deep Weekly Tarot. Love is going to be here, but I've got some new astrology shows, and we have some talk show stuff that we'll be doing here on my YouTube, and we'll be doing on High Vibe. That'll be really cool, giving different perspectives from the astrology, kind of like an after deep astrology show where people are talking about it. So we are not, well, I'm going to say for myself, I am never going to ever, and I've said this whenever I've taken a show off YouTube and put it to the apps, I will never leave you out to dry. I understand that some people out there can't even afford $1 at the moment in their life, so I will never leave you dry. I just want to let you know that. And that's why even with deep astrology, it's been that good of a show that I would never leave you dry even with this. I will always, at least, if you can make that time when we go live, like a television show, I will give it to you free. And I will do even newer shows if you didn't make it and you can't afford that show, to continue to bring you astrology and consciousness forever. So I want to always say that I will always make that commitment to you as a viewer forever. And I've done that when I pulled the daily horoscope in 2014 and 15 and got massively crazy. You're just a piece of crap, and gave you the uncut, which was so popular for years. Then I pulled the uncut and everybody freaked out, and I gave you deep astrology. So what do you think's coming next? That's all I gotta say. I love you all very much. Check out highvibe.tv. And if you want to go more into this, stepping into this paradise, you can get that video, Confronting Your Fears into Paradise, which is at highvibe.tv. Thanks so much for all your support. I've got the sound issue fixed on the YouTube. I love you all. See you on the next report, or see you on High Vibe.